Hello, Empowered Vegans. I am Mariquita Solis here today for a special live stream. So, if you're joining, please let us know where you're joining from. Get your questions and comments up in the chat and make sure you give StreamYard permission to use your name. So, I am a transformational coach who works with vegans that are really struggling to communicate and get the message across. And so we are honored to have Jaime Logan here, who does that every day. And we're going to find out her ways of getting the message across and wow, all of her upcoming adventures and activism. You're an amazing activist, Jaime. So welcome and thanks for joining.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here, and I'm excited to talk about just ways that we can be helping animals.
Wonderful. Well, how long have you been vegan?
So I've been vegan going on 7 years. I push it a little bit. It's closer to 6.5, but I wish longer.
I know everybody says that, don't they? Yeah. Well, what was the change for you, or what did you grow up? Did you even know what vegan or vegetarian was when you were
No,
a little child?
no, I think like most of us, I grew up in a family that ate meat, and I didn't really ever think about where my food came from. It was just on my plate. It looked like an inanimate object. It didn't look like the animals it once came from. So I didn't question it much until I was around like 11, 12. I saw a pig livestock truck on the highway. And that was like my first exposure to the ugly truth of where our food comes from. Because I was sitting in the car with my dog, and I just remember looking back at the animals in the truck and my dog in the car and not seeing the difference between the two. So it was a process of going vegan, but I think it was a seed that was planted. And it certainly disturbed me when my family that night had pork chops on their plate. And I was like, well, I am not going to eat that today. So,
That's a great point, right? A seed that was planted, and so many people might say, well, you saw that. How could you go back and eat? Or how come you didn't just immediately? But I mean, that's exactly the way it is. It's a journey. I mean, I have to gulp because it has to be a journey. That's what life is. And then it's not that I say anything. It's not up to, it's not up to me. But and the main thing is planting seeds. And I've never seen a pig livestock truck. I mean, I've seen chickens, and I mean, it's all terrible. I just can't even imagine. I don't know why I haven't seen one. I guess I've been lucky enough not to, but wow.
well, they hide it. A lot of the time, they drive the animals to the slaughterhouses super late at night or early in the morning so that people don't see the truth of where the food comes from. However, it was just one of those odd experiences where it was a hot summer day and I was in Indiana visiting my grandparents. And I grew up in New York City, so I was never really around farmed animals except when we went to the occasional petting zoo. But that it was like I guess an afternoon. It was like a really hot afternoon in the summer, and there was that pig livestock truck, and it's a horrific sight and smell. And in there's upwards of 50 in one truck, no food, no water, panting. You see their little eyes peering through the hole, and that just stuck with me. And I felt really uncomfortable about it. And I think it touches on our true nature as humans. I believe that we are kind and compassionate deep down, and that through social conditioning, we just close our eyes to the hard truths and to animal suffering and to many other sufferings too. It's like you if you're thinking about every horrible issue in the world, you would just go crazy. So we learn to desensitize ourselves from these things. And unfortunately, with animal agriculture and animal rights, this is an issue that 3 times a day good people are participating in.
You're right. And I like the way you say good people, because a lot of people want to hate, but it's not. I mean, I used to be one of those, good people that didn't get it. You're right. It's this conditioning, and the way also what you said about the way we are born to care about everyone, but we are conditioned out of that to for the speciesism. And so it's something we have to realize when we're talking to people, and it's very frustrating. I mean, of course, we have these emotions and we have to acknowledge the anger and the frustration and the overwhelm, take time taking breaks for ourselves. And yeah.
That is the one thing that I remind myself, I think a lot of us as activists, it's not like we grow up saying, I'm going to be an activist and I'm going to try to change the world. I mean, maybe some people do, but that was not me. And so it's something that I fell into, and I just feel so strongly that this is an issue that not only relates to animal rights, but so many other issues regarding climate change, regarding health issues, human rights issues. When you think about who are the people working in animal agriculture, inside of slaughterhouses, on fishing boats, it's a very abusive industry, no matter what way you look at it. And so I feel that when we're fighting against animal oppression, we're fighting against many other injustices as well. And I love there's a quote that the first form of injustice that we are taught is that some animals are food and that some animals are companion. And it's so true that from a very early age, we're taught that just because one animal looks a certain way, they should be treated differently. So I really do believe that once we can learn to treat animals with kindness, we can surely extend that same compassion to each other.
You're exactly right. And it's just the awareness and how do we break out it, like I think it was Dr. Will Tuttle that said it's a miracle that anybody's vegan, that they broke out of this conditioning, right? And this desensitization. It's yeah. So all right.
Yeah.
Go
It's
ahead.
a really hard thing to do because it's that social pressure. It's standing up in front of a crowd of people that you love, that you've known your whole life, and stepping away from them and saying, I don't agree with what you're participating in. And it's also looking inward and looking at your whole past and saying, I was wrong. And that's not easy for anybody to do. It wasn't easy for me to do. It took me years, but it's the best decision I ever made. And I will always be vegan. I feel like I've just kind of reconnected my morals with my actions.
Right, exactly. You're right. I know. I love that, living in alignment. And so it does take time. And you're right, the pressure of family and friends. And what about your family? Are they all vegan?
No, they're not. And it's really difficult. I mean, my immediate family, like my parents and my brothers, they are supportive of everything that I'm doing, that's helpful. But it's like, I don't need your support. I want you to change, I appreciate it. But so, it got to a point that over the years, I stopped going to certain family gatherings because there would be a dead bird on the table. I would just rather go to a Friendsgiving, that kind of thing. So whenever I visit my parents' houses, my dad's in Jersey, my mom's in Florida, they will make sure that that there's only vegan food, which is nice. Like, I really do appreciate that. And they're getting there. Being that I've only been vegan 6.5 years, I can only hope that in the next couple years that they will make the connection, because they've gotten a lot closer to it. Like my dad, when I first was starting out in my plant-based journey, my dad was suffering from high blood pressure, high cholesterol. He was pre-diabetic. And I said to him, hey, Dad, like, why don't you just try going plant-based for a couple months? See how you feel. You can't go wrong here. Just give it a try, or you'll just stay on your medicines and keep doing that and having to go to the doctor. So he took my advice, and sure enough, he is now off of his high blood pressure medicine. His cholesterol is way lower, but he's not vegan. Like, I want to say like 85% plant-based. Like, I know he's probably having seafood sometimes and eggs on the weekends, but there's no milk in the house. So it's a step in the right direction. And then my mom, for as long as I've known her, my whole life, was never a big meat eater. She I would say was pescatarian most of my life, from what I can remember. And she texted me the other day she said, I've been really trying hard to be vegan lately or eat plant-based lately. And she was telling me, she's a flight attendant, and she was telling me she was on a trip in Buenos Aires, and she said, I was out to dinner and it's been really hard because I had to go to dinner and only eat sweet potatoes, and the whole flight crew was making fun of me. Huh. And I said, welcome to my world. I said, thank you so much for sticking to your ground, because the hardest thing is really the social pressure, I think. And I said, and she said they were calling me weird, which to her, that's really offensive. To me, I'm like, a compliment at this point if somebody calls me or way worse. And so she was like, they think I'm so weird. And I was like, the only thing weird is people eating innocent, defenseless animals. And one day they will understand. Just, set that precedent, lead by example. And so she's trying. But then I have a whole other side of my family, like cousins and people that have defriended me from Facebook, who I have like absolutely no communication with. They think I'm a nut job, which I've always been a nut job, but at least I'm like channeling it towards something good for the world. I hope. I'm trying to.
Right. Well, that's so funny, because every time I interview people, I feel like this person surely has the whole family vegan. And no, nobody, it's always the same. Well, I wish, maybe I have a few, but so it's
the hardest. I always recommend to people, let them hear it from others, because the way that like my family even got closer was I planted the seed, but then by me hitting them over the head, they just started getting annoyed and they almost kicked me out of the house when I was living there. And then my dad goes to like a talk at Rutgers that my friend was presenting on health. And then sure enough, he's like, okay, I'll give this a try. And I'm like, I've been telling you this for like 2 years.
No, I know. I have the same experience.
Right? It's just like accountability, I guess, because I'm his kid.
No, I know. I think, well, what's the point of that certification in plant-based nutrition? Because nobody still listens to me. I thought, well, now they're going to believe me. Now they're going to listen. No. Right. Anyway, I mean, certain people do, but the ones that I thought would, I thought now they have to listen.
I'm like, guys, I'm not speaking out of my ass. Like, I have facts. I have researched this stuff heavily. Trust me, I've been on both sides. I used to eat animal products. I get it. This is the better way in every single category for your own health, for the animals, and the planet.
Well, I feel good hearing that, because we're all doing the best we can. That's all we can do, and just keep planting the seeds. And you're right. Let the family learn it from someone else. Yeah, definitely. And that takes all the pressure off. And, but
that's right.
Yeah. All right. I see some, whoever is here from Baltimore, thanks for joining. And someone saying great guest and powerful film, which we're going to have to talk about in a minute. And Charlotte's saying hi. So thanks everyone for joining, and please subscribe to this channel. So Jaime, tell us about The Next Girl. When I watched that, I was scared to watch it. I mean, you have to be brave to watch these things, right? And I didn't even know that was you. So, and now here we are talking, but that's the way the universe kind of sends. Yeah. So if you haven't, can you, how did that come about? How did you become a part of that? And what is it?
So The Next Girl is a short film that I was starring in, and it was written by Lisa DiCrescenti, and she is an incredible writer. She, a few years ago, wrote this and needed to find a home for it, and Star Simmons from Be Kind Studios connected with Lisa, and Tara Bennett came on board to direct it, and then they were looking to cast somebody. You'll have to ask them why they thought of me. I have no idea, because normally I do comedy and humor, and like I don't think they've seen me act. I have a little bit of a background with acting because I studied it in school, but it was surprising to me. I went to this event in May of last year, and Star came up to me and she said, "Listen, there might be this tentative project. I just wanted to put it in your ear. If you have some dates open in August, let me know. We'll make it happen. I just have to secure funding for it." So I was just like, oh my gosh, like, can you send me the script? Like, I want to hear more about it. So I read it, and I just knew that as soon as I read it, it was going to be a very powerful project and piece, because the storyline of The Next Girl is it takes what happens to dairy cows and shares their story from a human experience, from a human perspective. And somebody watching it for the first time, you don't know it's about dairy cows until the end. Sorry, I just gave it away.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
but but you'll kind of, if I'm in it, you'll know it has something to do with animals. But the storyline, it just, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's a beautiful story of the connection between and the bond between a mother and a child. And as we know, in the dairy industry, babies are taken away from their mothers, and within days, and then they never see them again, and then they're all killed. The dairy industry is a slaughter industry. So I would really love you guys to check that out. It was very powerful for me to also put myself in that place and in that position, because you see these horrible videos all day long, but to actually feel it and live it and try to like channel what these animals are going through by the millions every day is just, it's overwhelming.
Right. It is overwhelming. And the film is very short, right?
Yeah. I think it's like 12 minutes or so. And what's crazy is we shot it in an abandoned slaughterhouse. So we shot it in Tucson, Arizona. And it was just a very creepy vibe. The energy there, you could really feel the darkness, because I mean, millions of animals had been killed at that specific building and in that slaughterhouse. So like between that energy and like the script and each scene that we were filming, it was it was an incredible experience. And I'm just hoping that it's going to turn people vegan and share the truth about what happens in the dairy industry.
Right, exactly. And how can we get it out more to the mainstream?
So it won in a few festivals. It won in Cannes Worldwide, which was like so cool to see that it ended up on more of a mainstream platform over there, because we make these films, but if it just circles around the animal rights community, it's good to share it, but we really want to reach non-vegans with it. And I think it's a great film to do that, because you don't know what you're watching and you don't know what it's about till the end. You feel for a human, you feel for the suffering of the human, which would be me, and you're able to put yourself in her position. And then it's like, when it changes and you see that, wait, this is a true story that's happening to a dairy cow, then the question is, do you still feel that same pain and suffering that you felt when it was happening to a human? And if you don't, why not? Would you feel that if it were happening to a dog? So it's really just trying to break down the otherness that we've created, because what we do, and this is to protect us and to allow us to continue in the behavior of eating animals, we say, oh, cows are stupid. Oh, they're just cows. They're other. And we've done this through multiple points in history to oppress humans. We've said, oh, they're just Jews, or oh, they're black, or oh, they're, just so that we can continue to oppress them. And the truth is that we need to stop seeing others as others and recognize that we are all one. We are part of a collective. And if we all have the ability to suffer and feel pain, that is all that should matter.
Right. And to understand that you're right, there are no others. And if we hurt one part of one living being or one part of the planet, we all suffer. Like there's no garbage, really. Like we think we throw it in the garbage, but there is no garbage can. It all is here on Mother Earth, right? So this there's so much work to be done. This awareness that we work together instead of this divisiveness that is sickening and poisoning. We're not going to be around because we're poisoning our earth.
Well, the beauty of all of it is there's so many ways for people to get involved, and we have vegans. We just need more vegans to speak up. And so the Next Girl film is an example of doing activism, but through a creative outlet. So using film to get the message out there in a way that kind of shocks people and draws them in, as opposed to scaring them away with maybe just showing the dairy footage that they wouldn't watch in the first place. So I think finding ways and outlets that suit you. So like if you're an artist, if you're an actor, if you're a musician, use that to your advantage to advocate. If you're more of a bold person and you want to protest and get out there, grab a sign, get out there, start a pressure campaign. Like right now in New York, we have a few pressure campaigns going on that are really powerful and that get change. And we need to grab onto those victories, whether small or big. It all makes a difference.
Well, yeah, definitely. And so tell us about a pressure campaign you've been a part of.
Sure. Yesterday we were just at the CEO's office building. Thomas Robb, he's on the board of Adidas, and we're asking Adidas to drop kangaroo leather. So that's a pressure campaign because we're targeting a specific industry, we're targeting a specific company and specific individuals to ultimately get the change that we want. So they don't use a lot of kangaroo leather. So it's not hard for them to just outlaw the material and get rid of it. And number two, it is something that we can see the victory once we get it outlawed. So it's a winnable battle, I guess you could say.
Well, good. That's wonderful to hear. And it takes all these different forms of activism, like you were saying before. And we all can do our part, like whether you're an artist or however you can get people to come to this awareness, right?
Yeah.
We have to do it. So we've got a lot of comments over here.
I love that they're saying get LVMH to end fur sales. And yeah, it's true. That is another pressure campaign that's happening. We're trying to specifically target Marc Jacobs. But the problem is it's like I think they're owned by LVMH. So it gets complicated, but there are a lot of activists working on going to home demos and really confronting CEOs of these companies and being like, enough is enough. Like, stop the animal abuse, get this out of here. No time for this. And that's how we get change. And we've seen this over and over again, especially with fur, getting companies to drop fur. I remember a few friends and I, Rachel, I think my friend Rob was involved, and a few other activists. We went to the home of the guy who runs Saks Fifth Ave, and we were like causing a scene in his lobby. It was a real show. And a few days later, Saks Fifth Ave dropped fur. And it wasn't just from that one action. It was like months of campaigning. But it was like, I think the final straw where he's like, all right, now they're coming to my building. Okay, like I'm done with this.
Great. Well, no, it takes all that. Exactly. All right, let's see. And I see some more. And please, Facebook user, let us know who you are and give StreamYard permission, or just tell us who you are here.
Yeah, I'll add you on Facebook. I just can't see your name.
Right. And then here's Angela Fischetti. Thank you so much for amazing. I love Angela. She's working hard also. And then Charlotte's asking Charlotte, we did, Jamie told her story. And then my story is, I saw in 92, Meet Your Meat, and I became vegetarian. Then that little clip. And then it was a journey to vegan and then vegetarian, because this was a long time ago and it wasn't so easy, and plus the social pressure, right? So I fell off and then came back. So I can't condemn anyone, and I don't want to condemn anyone. I'm like, I want to help you. How can I help you? Right. So Tom, whoever Tom is. All right. So anyway, all right. So Jaime, so what about your outreach you have a podcast?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have two podcasts. One is called Jamie's Corner, and it was a podcast that I started back in college. It was originally called Under the Veg Fluence, and then I rebranded it, thank God. And it is just a platform where I interview different activists, CEOs, doctors, and even yogis, spiritual leaders. And I talk to people about animal rights activism, health, nutrition, the environment. And so that's my platform and my podcast. And then I also host the Just So You Know podcast, which is PETA's new podcast. So we cover different topics from very specific companies and organizations like Elon Musk's Neuralinks and what they do to animals and animal testing, to circuses, to we even talk about health and wellness and sexual health and how going vegan helps with that. So Just So You Know it's an entertaining and hopefully, and we try to make it funny. And my co-host Justina Adorno, her and I, we have a lot of fun hosting it together. And I've learned a lot through that podcast because it really does take a lot of prep to break down these campaigns that we have going on, and to also talk about how companies will put profits over ethics every single time. And so we're just trying to expose some of that on that podcast.
Well, wonderful. We've got to expose. I mean, PETA worked so hard to do that. And I was in one of the protests here at the circus where they did the chain, where they chained themselves and they went to jail. And I was just like, oh my gosh, the people were coming and saying, you're going to jail. And we had already been told we're not going to go to jail, right? But I was still like, oh my gosh.
Right.
But it was a very good experience. And I would do it again, definitely, because there weren't that many people, but it was still enough commotion, right? It was a big commotion.
Great. Yeah, we need it. I love PETA. I mean, it's like we need the PETAs of the world to really push the needle and do the extreme posts, the social media posts that they make and the actions that they take. I mean, I remember a few months back, they had me up on that, the Coach fashion show, crashing the runway show, which made national headlines and international headlines actually. And it got the fashion industry talking about leather.
I saw that. I didn't know that was you. Another thing I didn't know, you were everywhere and I'm not even knowing it's you, Jaime. Anyway, that's very interesting. That was amazing. I love that. I still see it in my mind. So these are all great things you're doing.
It takes a team. It's not just me, it takes a team, and it's like, I feel like this is the least that we can do for the animals that are suffering and in cages and being killed. I mean, it's just, even thinking about it, it's just like, how did we get to this point in humanity? Like, what are we doing as a species?
I know. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's so low, the lowest of lows. I mean, I can't wrap my head around it either. How could we? I mean, it's all money.
Yeah, it is all money. And so, like, that's why I'm like, whatever it takes, you guys, like, try different forms of activism. Part of why I started Jaime's Corner was because I needed an outlet and a form of activism that I could just be myself and like find myself again. Because I think through activism over the years, especially in the first couple of years of being vegan, I lost myself. I was like depressed all the time over this stuff. I was going to slaughterhouses and just like, you wouldn't even recognize me, and I wanted to like do something that I could sustain in the long run. And so by using humor and different tactics that are personal to me, that I'm like, oh, this is actually fun to do and it's educational and hopefully making a difference. That's what I think we need to focus on, because the animals need us here in the long run.
Well, you're right. And that's one reason I'm working on these in-person events with like forest bathing and getting people connected to the earth. If I can hook them to the earth, then we talk about food for earth, animals and everything. And it's not so heavy on my heart. So it's like a balance, because I have to take a step back, right? We all have to be aware, and change it up, like you're saying,
Definitely.
Well, here's a question. Have you spoken to Sadhguru? He's not vegan, he eats honey.
I mean, I don't think he would want to speak to me. I don't know why he would. I would love to. if I could find him, I would love to speak with him.
Well, I thought he's been over here in this area. If I ever see him, I'll try to get an audience. I don't know if he would speak to me, and here's another question.
Great.
Ask her about Pamela Anderson writing a cookbook and not using the word vegan.
Okay, yeah, this is a good question. I mean, the world, unfortunately, has apparently become afraid of the V word. I don't know why, because all it means is simply just being kind to animals. That's what I think veganism is, and just not using animals in any way practically possible. But the world has like placed this stigma on the word vegan. And there's studies on phonolytics that show that you'll get more engagement if you use the word plant-based as opposed to veganism. So some people and companies and organizations are being a little bit more strategic about it and not even mentioning the word vegan to get meat eaters and the mainstream public more drawn in. So I think it's brilliant. I think if that's how she wants to do it, then that's great. And personally, I do think that we should be normalizing not having animal products. We shouldn't have to say the word vegan. Like, I want to live in a world one day where people they'll sit down at a restaurant, and if they really want the animal product, they will have to be the ones to request it. Everything should just be vegan naturally. And I did a podcast with this amazing woman, Sharon Gannon, a few months back. And she's a yogi. She founded Jivamukti Yoga, and she's very spiritual. And she was talking about in my podcast, she said that we need to make veganism just normal. So like in movies and television and in TV shows, that it should just be like a normal thing to not have meat on the table, and nobody even needs to say anything about it. It just needs to become the status quo. So like right now we're seeing vegans portrayed as these hippies or tree lovers, or the complete opposite, where we're like totally militant and annoying. And it's like, truth is, we're just normal people that don't want to see animals be decapitated. So to answer your question, I think that not using the word vegan is fine. I think in certain cases I do like to use it, but if she doesn't want to use it, that's great. I mean, we do just need to normalize that animals are not ingredients, and we don't need to even label it as such. It's just like, these are what's going into your meal, and deal with it.
Right. No, I understand why she doesn't use it. Even at my church, right? Being the leader of the healthy living group, and when I wear my vegan shirt, I know that people get defensive, and sometimes I think I'm just not even going to wear it, right? I'm just going to not even say that. I'm going to say whole food, plant-based, plants, because it's the same thing, and because it's the outcome is better. And people do feel like they feel cornered with that, and I do everything I can not to make them feel that way. So I do understand when people say whole food, plant-based. I don't think that means that they're bad people at all.
No, I think we just have to adjust who we're speaking to.
Exactly.
It depends on the crowd. So Pamela Anderson's really trying to market towards that mainstream crowd, and she wants them to buy her book. And I think sometimes if people see vegan or plant-based on the cookbook, it's not going to be a book that they reach for. So she's like, let me just like put delicious recipes in here, and people will make them and see that you're not missing anything when you go plant-based, except animal cruelty. It's the only thing.
Right. And that's normalizing, like you were saying. Here's a normal book without any animals, and we don't have to say it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can't take credit for that. I got to give it to Sharon Gannon, but she really got me thinking about that. I'm like, wait, that's so true. That is what we need to do.
Exactly. Yes. Well, here's another great comment by Angela. I'm so disturbed by the fact that the yoga community hasn't pieced together a ahimsa on the mat and a ahimsa on their place. I've been a yoga teacher since 2002. Very, very frustrating. I know it is very frustrating. What do you have to say about that, Jaime?
I've asked Sharon Gannon about this and a few other yogis that I've interviewed, and it's a huge disconnect, right? Because it's like, on one hand, how can you preach love and peace and compassion, and then on the other hand, eat animals that have been confined their whole lives and then killed and dismembered? It's like, it really is so hypocritical. But what I've been trying to understand for myself and conceptualize, and from what I've learned from Sharon, is it's like, we do have to show compassion for those people too, and that they something is holding them back and something is being disconnected for them. I don't fully understand what it is either. It doesn't make much sense to me, but we have to hold space for them and hopefully be a tool that helps them to make that connection, because we have to stop seeing animals as inanimate objects and recognize that they too should be included in that love and compassion and the peaceful world that yogis speak of.
Right. I feel that same way about the Buddhists. I have some friends that are Buddhists or some Sikhs, and this is very frustrating to go to Universal Dances of Peace, and then we're eating animals afterwards. I think, well, how in the world could this be? You know,
well, what I love about Jivamukti Yoga is that at the teacher trainings, they play earthlings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Sharon and David, the founders of Jivamukti, have created so many vegans and given them a solid base and a solid foundation for practicing yoga and veganism in the long run. You guys should read this book. It's a book called Yoga and Veganism. You can buy it on Amazon, and it explains how yoga and the 5 yamas, the principles of yoga, are related directly to veganism. And I could touch on it a little bit if you want, but I don't know if it's something everybody wants to hear about right now.
Well, I mean, it's fine with me. Whatever you want to do, or we can move on. And here's whatever you want to talk about.
Well, yeah, if you guys are curious, I could go on and on about it. But from what I've learned from reading the book Yoga and Veganism is the five yamas. One is ahimsa, which we know is do no harm. And when you eat animals, that is directly harming them. Another one is satya, which means truth, to tell the truth. And these industries basically pride themselves on lying to the public. They are not truthful. They're deceitful in their advertising. They are liars through and through. And another one is asteya. There's just like non-greed. And like when we're eating animals, we're super greedy. Another one is called brahmacharya, which means to not sexually assault. And we know that in these industries, especially dairy eggs, these dairy cows and egg-laying hens, they are forcefully impregnated. They have their babies taken away from them. It's a violation of the female body for sure. And what's the other one? The 5 yamas. Oh, aparigraha is non-greed, and then asteya is non-stealing. So asteya, I mean, we're stealing their lives. We're stealing everything from them. Their babies, their lives, their feathers, their fur, their eggs, their milk. So those are the 5 principles, the 5 yamas of yoga. And so this book really dives deep into that, and I would recommend it, Yoga and Veganism.
Well, wow. Okay. I've heard a lot about that book. So this is another time the universe is saying, get it, get it, get it. So thank you.
Yes, Sharon Gannon.
All right. And we got another comment. Hellman's is discontinuing their vegan label for Whole Foods based on their mayo.
Is it still vegan though? It's still plant-based?
That's a good question. I don't know. Let us know, Trish. I saw Trish at Christspiracy. That was exciting. I wish there were more people, but she was there. That's all that matters.
Wow. So you guys saw it in theaters?
We went to the theater. I mean, we didn't go together, but then she was there, and then we talked afterwards. So, and then she came to this earth healing circle, and I spoke up for animals.
That's
like,
great.
Come on.
Throw it in there where you can. Really throw it in there where you can. It's funny. I'm like, whenever I'm out in public at like events that are not necessarily vegan related, I'm like, I go back and forth in my head. I'm like, do I say it? Do I not? Like, how do I bring this up? It's like a whole calculation that happens. I'm sure you guys can relate. And I always end up saying something. I always end up bringing it up, but I try to do it in a way where they're being manipulated without even knowing it.
I know what you mean. That's the way I am too. I mean, I'm trying to like, how is this going to be presented in the best manner where we're just, it's just like me being very kind and loving, right? So anyway.
You definitely seem a lot more loving and kind than me. I can be a little like, I get them sometimes.
I want to hear about that too. All right. Let's look at this one. Please ask her about getting vegan products made in facilities where there's no cross-contamination, like dark chocolate, for example.
So like, do I eat it? Are you asking? Or how do I feel about it?
I don't know. I mean,
Personally, I don't want cross contamination. I think it's disgusting. Like if I'm out at a restaurant and I know that they're going to cook the Beyond Burger on the same grill as an animal product burger, I will not eat that. But I think, in terms of like animal suffering and helping animals, it doesn't make a difference if the dark chocolate was made in that same facility. And it doesn't really make a difference if my burger was cooked on the same grill in terms of the animal suffering. I think it's so gross. Like the thought of it scares me, but it's not. I think, you got to be, I don't want to come across also in these restaurants as like super high strung and annoying where, I'm asking a million questions. I try to go to vegan restaurants only in New York for the most part. Like when I'm going out to eat with friends, like we only go to vegan places because I'm in New York. I totally understand if you're elsewhere and it's not convenient. I get it, but I am spoiled in a sense that there are a lot of places to choose from here. But if I'm like in another state or at a non-vegan place, I try to get things that are like salad or things where I don't have to ask a million questions or have them remove a million things because I don't want people to see veganism as super hard or unachievable,
No, I know that too. I went to a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and the chef was very excited. He made me a beautiful, but it was like little leeks and it was all in this beautiful presentation. He came out and talked to me, and the waitress even thought it was scallops. But it wasn't. So, I mean, we just have to ask for it and exactly, and not be, we don't want to come across as like, oh my gosh, here comes another vegan. I mean, but we want to get our needs met, but we don't want to represent in a negative way. So it's very, it's a delicate situation.
Yeah. And I think what also you guys, what we need to understand is like, there is no such thing as being perfect. It just is, it's impossible. Like you're going to walk down the street and there might be a microorganism. And the point is that we want to reduce suffering as much as possible. And we certainly do not want to intentionally pay and fund an industry that is doing these horrific things to animals.
Right. Exactly. You're right. There is no perfect. I mean, we all just do the best we can. And there's no reason to beat ourselves up if we make mistakes. Just move on. Right. We don't have time to waste beating ourselves up. There's too many important things to do. So let me ask you about when you're out there talking to people on the street, tell us about some of those experiences.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Like I really love meeting people and I like messing with them. And it's so great to do these debates because I'm like, I always win. The logic and the facts are on our side. It's great. I'm like, I know what they're going to say a mile a minute. Like I know exactly what they're going to say right before they even say it is what I'm trying to say. And so that being said, I'll go out with either specific topics in mind. Like a few weeks ago, I went out with a sign that had a picture of my friend Zoe Rooster, and she has an ankle monitor on for rescuing ducks from a factory farm. And I had a picture of her and myself, actually. We were in the picture together, and it said, "Can you guess why my friend has an ankle monitor on?" And people on the street were like coming up with all these crazy ideas of why she might be facing 20 years in prison and have this ankle monitor. And then when I told them that no, she's facing 20 years in jail for rescuing sick and dying ducks from factory farms, you should have seen the look on these people's faces. So I get like all sorts of, fun and engaging content from these people, but it gets them to think about animal rights in a way that's not me forcing it down their throat. It's them looking at the system as a whole and being like, wait, this like 20-year-old girl is like facing that many years in jail for rescuing animals? Like what? So then I'll do things like that. I have given out food. I'll dress up. I dressed up as a tick a few months back. And you're probably wondering why. I will explain. There's a tick called the Lone Star tick. And the Lone Star tick, when they bite you, you become allergic to animal products, which is amazing. Like the fact that somebody hasn't thought about releasing this on the world is bizarre. I'm like, this could be the answer, the solution to the world's greatest problems. So I dressed up as this tick and I held a sign that said, "Can I bite you?" And it was a good way to like engage with people and get them to think about, you know, these issues. So my talking points were like, well, if you're not going to go vegan for the right reasons, which would be like the animals, the environment, you know, your own health, then maybe I just have to bite you, you know, like I won't even give you a choice at this point. So it was like a funny, you know, it was a fun thing to do in the park. And I'll do other things on the street where I'll go up to people in fur coats and I'll be like, can you break down the outfit for me? Tell me what you have going on here. And then slowly but surely I'll be like, okay, so how important is animal welfare to you when you buy clothes? And then they go into the vintage thing. And so I really like to educate through the Socratic method, which is by asking questions and getting them to kind of answer their own. Like I kind of pin them into a corner where I get them where I want them.
That's the best way, right? When they come up with it for themselves. Exactly. Well, that's very, so you're really thinking outside of the box. So everybody pay attention here. To think of new ways. I mean, we don't want to just do the same old thing. And that's why everyone has their own expertise and their own way of sharing. So there's no, you know, wrong way to do it unless you're beating somebody up, you know, things like that. But this is great. I love the creativity here.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at some more of the comments here. I can't keep up with them. All right. So here's a comment from Trish. I'm always looking for the perfect elevator speech regarding veganism for responding to, why are you vegan?
Yeah, that's a great question. I change it up. So like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I just, you know, I don't want animals to be harmed for meat or for any purpose. And sometimes I'll say I'm vegan for many reasons. I mean, I feel so much better. I don't cause animals. I always bring up the animals because that is why I'm vegan. But you could also bring up the positives of like nowadays in 2024, it's never been easier. Why wouldn't I be? Like the real question is, why aren't you vegan?
Right.
You could ask that back to them.
Right. Yeah. And it depends. Yeah. I mean, it's a good point, like to think about who you're talking to, right? I mean, hopefully you know more about what they like, what their interests are. I mean, I guess if you're talking to someone from an environmental agency, then I would say environmental reasons,
right,
if you have that knowledge. But I mean, yeah, but I like your answer. It's different. So let's see here. And everybody, please subscribe if you're liking this, because I have some great, we were talking about Lisa De Crescente, who was the director, writer of the film. So I have an interview with her on here. I love her. She has such a beautiful heart.
She does.
She really does. So let's see. Here's another question. What do you think of the idea of activists, influencers like yourself getting spots on public access TV? You already have tons of content that you could edit for the time slots. There's no censorship on public access TV.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, I would love to just get our content more mainstream. We're in a little bit of an echo chamber sometimes. And I even look at some of my analytics and I'm like, there's a lot of vegans that watch my stuff, which is great. I love you guys. Like, you're my people. But at the same time, I'm like, if we're not sharing this outside the community, how much impact am I having? So I noticed that like when the bacon comments start rolling in, or the people that think they're lions and tigers, I'm like, yes, like I'm reaching the people I want to reach. So what I have noticed is I do get a lot, like if you read through some of the comments on my videos, especially on like Instagram, I get a lot of backlash from the meat eaters. And it's a good thing because it means I'm starting to get them thinking. It's not like they're saying anything worthwhile. They're just putting like bacon gifts or like steak being thrown on the grill, things like that, where it just shows the level of immaturity, really. But it's great because it helps my engagement, and it means that the right people are seeing this. They're triggered by it, because I think no reaction is worse than a reaction. Like no reaction is worse because that means that they don't care, or like, they're not actually thinking about it. So yeah, I think that we absolutely do need to get access on TV spots. If the opportunity presented itself, I would love to do that. just kind of create content how I see fit. Like, I don't love to tailor it to how a TV station would want it, or, you know, I want it to get it out the way that I think would be most effective. So yeah, it would be great.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I love your attitude about hecklers or people that, I mean, that this just let them say what they want. The
Yeah.
main thing is they're there seeing your information, right? That they're there and that you know that it's elicited something inside of them. We want them to elicit something. We don't want them just, whatever, you know? So it's a good thing. A lot of people feel insulted or I can't handle it. Just let it go. Let them talk, you know, but just allow it to be and know that you've done something. You know, you planted a seed.
Yeah, it's funny, and I always look at some of those comments, and I'm just like, you are making my job so easy, because other people are going to come on this page and see this, and like, who wants to be associated with that? You're like a middle-aged man, like being offended at a video of like dancing girls doing a TikTok about animal rights. It's embarrassing.
That's so funny, but I love it. I love it. And I love your strength and your you just allow you know your confidence, right? Let's get a dose of confidence from Jaime here. So I mean that confident energy is coming out. So
it takes practice. It takes time. I remember my first account that ever went viral was on TikTok, and I deleted it after a few days because I couldn't handle the comments. And then I realized, like, years later, I'm like, why would I do that? Like, those are the people I want to reach. Like, this is the conversation that needs to be started. And we take a hit as activists. It's like we have a target on our back as the messengers. And it just, you got to put your ego aside and just deal with it. Like, you know, I have my vegan family. I know where you guys are at. And I'm not here. I think there's a saying I like. It's say what you mean and mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And I'm not out here being mean to anybody or terrorizing anybody. I'm just laying out facts and having fun conversations and trying to spread love and compassion. And so I think if you keep your intent in mind and then let your activism prevail you, that's important.
definitely it is. Here's another comment. NY has MNN and QPTV. If we get a lot of activists in cities, it would be adding TV as another media. All you have to do is contact them to get a spot.
People should check out Unchained TV because there's a ton of animal rights content on there. So maybe there's a partnership that could be had with that.
Yeah, saying Unchained TV is great. I love Paige, and then Victoria Moran has Paige Parsons Roach and Victoria Moran and Sherry with Paige, and has a lot of great shows. And have you had anyone that's really become emotional crying, or anyone that's very memorable in that aspect that you talk to?
Oh, on the street? Yeah. I mean, often, especially when the footage is playing like right in front of them. So like when I go to different Anonymous for the Voiceless Cubes, which for those people that don't know, it's just like a volunteer group that will get together, and we have TV screens that show standard practices in the meat, dairy, and egg industries. And when I'm speaking to people and the footage is there, yeah, I've had people go vegan on the spot. I've also been at these cubes where people have come up to me and asked me if I was Jaime, and that they wanted to let me know that they've been vegan ever since we spoke, which was like months ago. I don't even remember some of these people. So yeah, absolutely. And sometimes tears are not always the first reaction. Like sometimes people get angry and people get defensive, and other times like they've already heard the message a few times, a seed had already been planted, and they're just kind of like low hanging fruits where I can just be like, okay, you're ready to harvest. Got this one. New vegan was born, you know? So.
Yeah, I mean, that would be powerful to see. Let's see, we have a few more minutes. Here's one more question. Please ask her about showing the cube to school kids.
The Anonymous for the Voiceless Cube?
Cube of Truth.
Yeah, so there's a great group called New Roots Institute, and they go around to different schools around the country and they educate kids. They speak in classrooms, and it's hard because a lot of these schools don't want activists like myself coming in there and playing this footage. So it's you kind of have to get in there and then try to hit the message where you can. And PETA also does different programs with kids in school. But yeah, I think children, it's really important to start planting that seed from a young age, because it's not fair. Like, they're exposed to so much cruelty to animals and fishing and activities like circuses or zoos, where it's like they need also exposure to kindness to animals, and that there is a way that you can live happy and healthy without eating animals. Like, some kids don't even know that being vegan is an option.
Well, definitely. You're right. They don't. You're right. Well, all right. So we only have about 5 more minutes. I want to respect your time. I mean, we could talk all night, but Jaime, what would you like to share? Anything new, or just tell us, where we can find you? Share what you like.
Sure. Yeah. So you guys can find me. My username is it's Jaime's Corner, ITS. You have to include the it's. Somebody stole the Jaime's Corner. So it's Jaime's Corner. And also, if I have YouTube podcast, if you wanted to check out, Just So You Know, it's the new PETA podcast, and you'll learn a lot of stuff on there. And all these tools will just like make us better at being able to communicate these tough issues, I think. And also just some projects that I'm working on. Well, I'm speaking at Harvard actually this weekend, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be doing a workshop with some of the students there about creating viral content to ignite change. And I'll be hosting another panel there. So that's one thing that I have coming up. And also I'm hosting a panel for Save the Duck, which is a vegan coatware company. And they're doing like a college student night where they're going to have students come in, eat all plant-based food, talk about sustainability in fashion, food. And so I'm excited to do that. And then also I do a lot of art projects with Praxis, who's a vegan street artist here in New York. He's anonymous, but him and I will put up posters all over the city that either shine light on what happens in the dairy industry. We want to put up slaughterhouse worker quotes around New York, things like that. So we're always doing something.
Wow. I don't know how you have time to sleep.
That I need to catch up on. It's bad.
Well, I'm very excited. So do you have a YouTube?
Yeah. And if you go to itsjaimescorner.com too, you'll see YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of thing. But yeah, the YouTube, you'll see some of my conversations with people. And I try to make it so that it's not like, you're not going to cry watching it. Hopefully you laugh, actually. And so we're trying everything we can. I love Happy Zoe Vegan Bakery. I really good.
Well, this has been very informative, and I'm very inspired by your creativity and your passion and your confidence. So yes, thank you for sharing that, Jaime. And then so many people joined. I'm honored to have everyone. Trish, Charlotte, JJ, Facebook user who said he was, Stephanie, I can't remember his name. Somewhere, I can't even get through all those comments, but y'all are just a blessing. Tom, that's his name. So, and who am I missing? Whoever I'm missing, also everybody watching the replay, thank you for watching. Trish and Jaime. Yes. And so we're gonna continue on.
Just one little comment. I'm thinking animal cruelty videos can be traumatizing for kids. There's different ways of showing it. Like, you don't have to show animals being hung up in a slaughterhouse having their throat slit. I do think it's important for kids at a certain age to see that. Absolutely. Because if they're eating the product, they should at least know where it comes from. I wish that I saw it sooner, honestly, but there's many other ways. You could take kids to an animal sanctuary and just say, look, if we don't want these animals to be harmed, then you should be vegan. Because
what do you say to them? I mean, like, let's say a little kid came up to you and said, why are you vegan?
I would say, because I love animals. And I would say, just like you and me, they want to live too. And they don't want to be a chicken nugget.
Good answer. All right. Well, this has been beautiful. I feel very inspired. So thank you so much, Jaime. You'll have to come back on, and we'll check all of your podcasts out, and we'll be cheering you on.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much. It was really nice chatting with you, and I will be in touch.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.